Hello, I'm April Wolford, Director of Alumni Relations at Antioch College and a member of the class of 1992. I serve as the producer of the new series, Spotlight on Excellence. This series is designed to highlight notable alumni of Antioch College who make significant contributions to their professions, communities, and humanity. On May 28, 2020, we had the first event of this series and featured Julia Reichert, class of 1970, in conversation with visiting Assistant Professor of Media Arts, Catalina Jordan Alvarez. Because I forgot to start recording at the beginning of the event, I'm providing you with this introduction recorded after the fact. You will now begin watching the original recording of the event where I introduce our Vice President for Academic Affairs, Kevin Magruder, who serves as the MC. Please enjoy this spotlight on Julia Reichert. All right, I'm going to hand it off now to Kevin Magruder, who's going to do introductions and get the ball rolling.
Thank you, April, and thank you everybody for attending this first session of Spotlight on Excellence. And so I'll just give brief introductions and then I'll turn things over to Catalina and Julia for a conversation. Catalina Jordan Alvarez grew up in rural Tennessee with a Colombian mother and an American father. After majoring in experimental theater at NYU, she moved to Berlin and became involved in feminist and anti-capitalist movements. She studied filmmaking in German at the self-organized film school, Film Arch, and later received her Master of Fine Arts from Temple University in Philadelphia. She has taught media arts at Antioch College since 2018. Julia Reichert is an Ohio-based filmmaker who is a four-time Academy Award nominee and Oscar winner for her documentary work. Julia's student film, Growing Up Female, was the first feature documentary of the modern women's movement. It was selected for the National Film Registry. Her films, Union Maids and Seeing Red, Stories of American Communists, with Jim Klein, were nominated for Academy Awards for Best Feature Documentary, as was The Last Truck as a short film. Her film, A Lion in the House, made with Stephen Wagner, premiered at Sundance, won the Primetime Emmy for Exceptional Merit in Nonfiction Filmmaking. The Last Truck premiered on HBO and the Telluride Film Festival. The couple won the 2020 Academy Award for American Factory. Julia is co-founder of New Day Films, the independent film distribution co-op. She is author of Doing It Yourself, the first book on self-distribution in indie film. Julia has been drawn to focus on class, gender, and race in her work. She is a mom and a grandma. And so now we will turn things over to Catalina Jordan Alvarez and Julia Reichert for a conversation.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see all these faces. Wow. Hi, John Baker. But I see tons of people I know. Where's Catalina? There she is.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, Julia.
Hey, Catalina, hi.
Wow, this is a public
It's big.
conversation with,
Very public.
this is so exciting.
It is. I'm nervous.
Oh, I'm so nervous too.
Yeah, I'm very nervous.
Breathe in and out. Okay. So how are you doing with this pandemic?
Well, I'm here in Yellow Springs, so how bad could it be, really? We have Green and we have the Glen. Well, the Glen is closed, but those of us locals go in it anyway. And I'm having to fight cancer, which is, takes a lot of energy and stuff. But the good part of how I'm doing is when the whole pandemic started, you know, every part of me was like, man, Steve, we should be out there filming stuff. We should be out there like seeing what's going on, seeing how things are being impacted here in Ohio, in Southwest Ohio. We could not go anywhere. And I was trying to urge I have a lot of young people who are filmmakers within an hour of here. Some of them worked on American Factory or The Last Truck. And one of them said, look, if you will open doors, I will go out and shoot. You set me in something and I'll shoot it. And it turned out a lot of people felt that way. So what we've been doing, this group, we call them the COVID crew. There's about 10 or 12 of us. And we are documenting, you know, kind of capturing what's going on. Everything from like, we've been looking at how the homeless shelters are being impacted. We've looked at like the situation of like related to homeless, you know, the courts have been closed, but they're about to reopen. Mm-hmm. So people who are potentially going to be evicted, who've been, you know, who lost their job and all that in the last 2 months, there's a lot of people like that, particularly women and people of color. Now the courts are going to be open and the landlords can evict them. And so we're expecting a real avalanche on that story. Farmers, where some people were up today with some pig farmers who are looking at the possibility of euthanizing their pigs. We've got a great story. This will be the last one I'll mention, but they're all really, really interesting. And, you know, there was a total shortage of hospital gowns here, and they were running out. And so with sort of Dayton, Ohio ingenuity, the hospital went to UD engineers who went to an automotive factory that makes, right near here in Piqua, that makes cloth for the inside of autos, and all got together and really quickly figured out how to make hospital gowns and manufacture them from this factory. So there was the hospital, the design, the manufacturing, and we covered that whole thing. It was really cool.
Wow.
That's what we're doing. In addition
to
staying home, and we're actually working our asses off more than ever. I don't know. I think a lot of people are working hard, even though I see people shaking their heads. Yeah, we're working really hard, even though we have the pandemic. So that's what we're doing.
You're working with mostly young former students of yours?
Yeah, pretty much all former students, or let me think. Yeah, pretty much all former students. Wright State students, Wright State University, which as you know is close to here. And I taught there for 28 years. And I taught fiction and documentary, but you know, I've stayed really close to a lot of the students over the years, and some of them have stayed in the area and have worked on our films, and we've worked on their films. So yeah, former students, and that's that whole, I like to work with younger people, and I like, in a way, it's kind of fun to be like the way oldest person in the room.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what a treat for them to be able to get doors opened by you, who just won an Oscar this year. And so you just call people up, like you call the pig. I'm curious about this pig farmer. They're euthanizing pigs. What's that about?
Oh, well, they haven't, in Northern Ohio, they're euthanizing pigs. Around here, they're about to. I mean, that's what we found out today. They're about to. So what they're doing instead is they're selling these huge hogs, right, which are up to upwards of 300 pounds, either individually or in groups of 10 to just the public. Because the big industrial slaughterhouses like Tyson have been closed because of, well, we have all been reading the paper, you know, numbers of people who are sick with the virus in the packing plants. Mm-hmm. So we open doors, we make phone calls, and at this point, because we just won the Oscar, it's kind of like, oh yeah, we know who you are, and we know you know how to do what you do, and so sure. And then we gradually make them realize that it's going to be this 25-year-old is going to come and film them.
And film them from a distance.
From, well, 10 feet
Wearing
away.
a mask.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we try to be all safe. Yeah. Oh yeah, no question about that. Although the pig farmers today were not, apparently. They were all very casual about it. And I think a lot of people in rural areas are, more so than people in cities. That's what we're finding out. Anyways,
Right.
we're working on that, and that's been super interesting. And we're also working, we just have a new film coming out, which is called 9 to 5, The Story of a Movement. And that was supposed to premiere at South by Southwest.
Right.
I don't know if some of you know it's in Austin, Texas, and it's kind of a big deal. And we were supposed to have our world premiere there, and it got canceled. Like the day we finished the sound mix, South by was canceled. And then we were at a bunch of other festivals that were also canceled. But we are having a world premiere in June.
Mm-hmm.
It's not official, but it's mid-June, and it's online. And then there's a whole lot of other festivals after that. So we're excited about that. I brought up, I don't know, Catalina, I put a few pictures on to share screen because I thought rather than just sitting here watching me talk and you talk, we could show some pictures. Let me see if this.
That sounds perfect.
Okay, if this doesn't work right away, we'll just forget about it. Hold it.
And 9 to 5 is about the movement of, was started by secretaries demanding equal rights in the workforce, and they wanted
everybody. Yeah, it is. Everybody know. Did people see that? That's like kind of like the title. It's animated in the film, of course, but yeah, I mean, most people really, young or old, have heard the Dolly Parton song, right? Mm-hmm. Working 9 to 5. It's kind of an anthem of working women and really of the union movement and everything. And the movie, a lot of people have seen. So like years ago, like almost 10 years ago now, like 8 years ago, we were in DC, and Karen Nussbaum is one of the two co-founders. She's not an Antiochian, but she might be known to a bunch of people in the labor movement. We were having dinner, we saw her, and we were having dinner, and we talked about 9 to 5, and I realized, wow, this could be a really good film. And I like oral history films. I like that whole history from the bottom up. It's like Union Maids and Seeing Red are both that type of film. And so we set about to make this film, and it took a long time. Let me see if I can find another picture here. Wait a minute.
And then you sometimes take footage and you don't know when you're going to use this footage.
Yeah, right.
But you know that the moment is happening. Like right now, the pandemic is, a once in a lifetime event. Yeah. And, we don't know how long it's going to last. Mm-hmm. And you've sent your students out, just like a scene toward the end of 9 to 5 includes footage of the Fight for 15 that you had already taken when you just when it happened to be going on.
Yeah, we always say we are citizens with cameras, right? We are, that's our skill that we've developed over time, and we have the equipment and we have a car. So when something happens in our region, our area that we feel is important, like when the GM plant was about to close, June 4th, 2008. We read in the paper like everybody else. And we were like, what can we do? And what we could do was to go down with our camera and tape recorder and try to talk to people and meet people and see what was going to happen and all of that,
Yeah. Is that like your sole method of activism, is like filmmaking, or do you ever, call your district attorney or?
Do I ever call? Yes. I donate to things. Can you make it so that?
Which one do you want?
Well, I'm sorry, we're trying to figure this out. We don't want to see this.
I mean, I know you train people. You do a variety of service. You're really involved in your community. We'll get to that later.
I'm not sure. Can you see that?
Well, I can just see a sliver. maybe start over.
Okay.
Because it looks like maybe you selected a portion of the screen, but not the whole screen.
Oh, okay.
No,
Let's try.
I think we tried to select the whole screen. Let's just go. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I would say over the years, my main form of activism, I guess you could say, would be film. I mean, the thing that I think has had like the most impact, that plus working with younger people and hopefully encouraging them to be socially conscious and to make films that matter. That's a big thing it's obviously a big thing in my teaching is, you know, we're learning a medium that has huge impact in America and around the world. And so it really should matter what you're doing. I also really emphasize telling stories from your own community. That's another thing. This, I don't know if you can see this or not. This is just a funny image from 9 to 5. That was, we made it color, but I really liked it.
This is your image or it was from the movement?
It was from the movement, but we added the color. We stylized it a little bit for our press kit, you know, which is about to, be used like starting next week, actually, which is pretty cool.
So how can we watch this film when it comes out?
Well, actually you can't. The only way you could buy a ticket to the film festival, which I guess I can't say what it is, right? Not quite. It's going to be announced next week, so I probably shouldn't say. Anyway, you can. It's literally 350 seats. They're going to be. You buy it, it's probably $10 or something, and you have an active link for 24 hours, and then it disappears. And there's no way to download it. Apparently, there's all these protections that it's within our little. This is really inner circle kind of stuff, but it's all within our community. We've had to figure out like how to make it so that the whole world can immediately download your film when it comes out, because then it has, if you need to earn money from it, you have no way to do that.
Right.
Yeah, or if you want to control the distribution somehow. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sure, well, we're going to find out in a week or so where we can get that film. And this film, you know, has
that's right. Yeah. It is going to be on PBS. We already made that deal. It's going to be independent lens, probably at the beginning of next year. But it'll be in a bunch of film festivals, like all over the country. People have been writing us about it. So there's one coming up in DC. There's one coming up in New Jersey.
Yeah. You guys get hear from like a different film festival every day.
It seems like right now, yeah. Once they, yeah.
And you have engagements like this one, like every day too.
Pretty much. This is a kind of a big one, and I'm very nervous. I was very nervous about it because it's people I know and people I really care about. I mean, Antioch College was a huge part of my life, a huge, huge part of shaping who I am in so many ways. I mean, both learning basic skills of being a filmmaker at WYSO Radio. You know, that's where I learned how to edit, how to mix music, how to tell a story, how to think about an audience.
That was a co-op?
It was just something we did. I mean, in those days, don't forget, WYSO was student run.
Okay.
Remember, there was no professional manager. Was student run. So you got a show and you did your show, or I actually did have a co-op job, as news director or public affairs director, whatever they called it back then. That meant a lot. And also the whole idea of, you know, social change and wanting to like work for that. And even the idea of community. Community was a really big word for us. In my era, you know, we didn't have locks on the doors of any of our rooms, and you checked out your own books at the library. It was an honor system. There was an honor system in pretty much everything. And I remember we used to really discuss the word community and what that meant. And the CM at the time, the community manager, described community. He had a big presentation about it as this see if who remembers this, this warm, sticky feeling. Do people remember that? Community is a warm, sticky feeling. And that's how we started. And then, of course, we went on from there. But I think for my whole life, all these kind of basic ideas from Antioch have motivated me. Like building community, how you do that, like basically democracy, trying to reach consensus as much as you can, you know, being aware of the dynamics of race. And I learned about class. I'm a working class kid, but did I know I was a working class kid? Did I have a name for that? No, I learned that at Antioch through my professors who, you know, the latter part of my time there, we began to get more of the sort of like David Schiller, John McChesney, Ludo Abicht, some of, I don't know, your eras there, but those are some of the people who I learned a lot from. I will say though, I don't believe I had a single female professor the whole time I was at Antioch.
What?
Yep. I don't believe I don't remember ever having a woman professor. I mean, don't forget, this was before the women's movement, or just at the very beginning of the women's movement. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was just reading some stuff from Radical Software. Are you familiar? Were you involved with the Radical Software magazine?
Mm-mm.
It was sort of a place to talk about media, and there were listings of all these places you could like rent a tape, and Antioch was one of them. You know,
yeah.
From the library, and that's how you can kind of get the things that now you can get on YouTube. And there were examples of like a media arts program, and everything was like with he will do, you know, he was instead of
right.
one, or, you know, he was the stand-in for person even then.
Yeah.
You had one great male professor who taught you film.
Oh, I had a lot of great professors, but one of them was a guy named David Brooks. He was only there a short time. He died. He crashed his brand new, an old Volkswagen that he had bought from another student into a bridge on his way into school, like a few days after he bought it, and he died at the site. So I only had him for 2 or 3 quarters. But he was, yeah, his influence was on me was just get out and shoot. Just get out and shoot what you feel, shoot what you see. And, you know, it'll start making sense to you in the editing room.
This is an experimental filmmaker.
Which is pretty much still how we do it, right? I actually made the first film, like documentary I ever made in his class.
Oh.
Which was called, and it was a straight 8 black and white with a tape, like an audio tape, because there was no sync sound or anything that we had access to. And it was called Going to Town. And it was about farmers whose kids were all leaving the farm and going to town. I've always been interested in farming stories, I guess.
Oh. So can we watch that documentary somewhere?
I have, no, probably not, no. No, I don't know if the tape exists or the film or anything anymore.
So anyway. they would have these, I read you had these 8-hour, 9-hour classes, and you would watch Howard Hawks films all day, and then you would cook dinner together. And I was like, wow, like that's what we're gonna do after the pandemic. Yeah.
You know, David was an experimental filmmaker out of New York City. He was 24 years old. He had never graduated college. He was like this ball of energy and enthusiasm about film. And he showed us all the weird experimental films that you know, of the time, Stan Brakhage and Ken Jacobs and things that most of you never heard of, but was very, you know, very lively. And he had us go out and shoot and edit, but then one entire quarter, 10 weeks, we met in Kelly Hall for 9 hours on Friday, and we watched 2 to 3 Howard Hawks films, only Howard Hawks. And this was because he was, the idea of the auteur theory, which I'm sure you film goers know what I mean, like that a filmmaker has a certain thread of what they tend to, the themes they tend to work on throughout their career. This was a new idea at that point, fairly new idea. Andrew Saris in the late 60s, sort of, or early 60s, brought it up. Anyway, so we watched all the Howard Hawks films, 30 films. And it was a great experience. And it helped you understand, yeah, he did have similar themes about like male expectations and the role of females and just, many different things anyway. And then we would cook dinner. And somehow we made dinner in Kelly Hall, which I still can't remember how we did that. But I know we all had dinner together on the stage in Kelly Hall. So
you've got several classmates from that class here in this talk. They're commenting all over the place.
Where's the comments?
John Baker, Nancy Pollock is
John
naming it all.
Wait, where's the comments? I want to see that.
At the bottom right.
Bottom right, I see leave meeting.
To the left of that little white thing next to the orange.
It's an icon that says chat. Click the button that says chat and you'll bring up the text message.
Anyway, we don't have to we don't have to just talk about 50 years ago because it is 50 years. And, there were a lot of cool things that happened.
But did you have other film professors after David Brooks, may I ask you?
Well, there was, but they were people who would drive up from Cincinnati. Yeah, there was Steve Gebhardt and Tony Conrad and
Tony Conrad.
Tony Conrad, yeah.
I never studied with him?
No, I never did. No, no. Mm-mm. And Paul Sharretts.
But you didn't study with him either, Paul Sharretts?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope.
But they were there when you were there?
They were there probably right after I was there. There was a certain continuity. It just changed a lot. I don't know. We were just a bunch of kids who sort of were just like, just go out there and do it. Like, here's a bunch of films to watch. Here's your cameras. If you want to study f-stops, okay, go ahead, which I already knew about f-stops. I helped found the community darkroom at Antioch.
Really?
I was really interested in photography. Photography, WISO makes film, which led to my senior project. As you mentioned, I think it might be the only senior project in the Library of Congress.
Right.
National Film Registry, an actual student film.
So,
hold it. Elizabeth, yeah. Hi, everybody. Only Angels Have Wings. Yeah, that is like the best of the Howard Hawks films. Somebody notes that there. You were in that class, John. I didn't remember you were in that class. Paul Sharretts, yeah.
I see some thumbs up.
Yeah, right. Okay, so.
Someone's saying, what about the class you taught? But did you teach at Antioch?
I did. Back in the day, you had these things called student-initiated courses. And they were for credit, as I recall. I don't know, maybe they weren't. But me and Jim taught a class called, I forget if it was called Radical Media or Media for Social Change.
It was called Media as Propaganda, according
Media
to
as Propaganda. I was just thinking that was what it was, Media as Propaganda. And people like Carol Pearson, and I think maybe Joanne Wallace, some of those folks who became like stars in radio were actually in that class. And other people who later formed part of what we later was called the Media House, the Dayton Community Media Workshop, which was a bunch of us after graduating, moved to Dayton and formed a media collective. We lived together, we shared our money, we worked together, we decided together on projects. It was actually also very formative and very Antioch, right?
Yeah.
In fact, let me see if I can do another one.
You had moved to Dayton right after Antioch, and there were some people still at Antioch, and then they graduated, and you were like, come on down. And then you ended up at this house with 6 rooms and 7 people.
We had 6 bedrooms, actually. Here, let's see if we can find, I have a really cool couple of pictures here, if we can figure them out here. we should have figured this technology out before.
Yeah.
We,
But this is fun, you know, this is the real stuff. It's very authentic.
Summer Lights, there it is, 9.
This is how you make media.
Yeah, right. We're making it as we're speaking, right? So, yeah, in the early mid 70s, a bunch of us, and that's Andy Garrison in the middle, who's an Antioch grad, and Molly Metler on the right, who's an Antioch, and I forget Susan, I forget her last name, is also an Antioch grad. And oh, he's got the T-shirt on. We moved to Dayton, and we decided to do local media. That was our whole focus.
I want to read that.
And so we picked 3 neighborhoods that were within a walk of our house. That's how local it was. And we would walk the streets. We had teams. Each team went to a certain neighborhood. My neighborhood was called Mary Avenue, and there was a park in the neighborhood. In each of the neighborhoods, there was a park. And we would go around with still cameras and tape recorders and just get to know people, just talk, and eventually gaining some trust, and people wouldn't mind if we took pictures. Usually we'd say, hey, can we take a picture of your dog or your little girl or whatever? And they would say, oh, sure, go ahead. And then we would bring them back copies. So they would, you know, it was like an exchange, you know, they would get something for it. And people became very engaged. And we would start talking with them about like, well, what's going on in this neighborhood? What are the issues, you know, and sometimes it would be, well, those young people over there, that's too loud. And other people, and so we would make a little piece about that set to music and pictures. Let's see. Oh yeah, we used the song, What's the Matter with Kids Today? And we'd have like audio tapes of old people complaining about young people and young people complaining about the old people. Play this song and we'd show pictures and we made it funny. But in the end, that made people talk about it. So we started with very innocuous things like that. But then we would move into things like, well, the electric rates were so high that people would get their electric turned off in the winter. Could we go to the other picture? So we did a whole piece, and you can see how one guy has like a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
So we did a whole piece, and I guess they must have been singing, or it must have had a play related to it. And the main character was called Ready Kilowatt. And it was a little skit that we did about utility rates and how the public should really be up in arms about these high utility rates. But that came from the community because people were finding it hard to pay their bills. And there was no relief for people who were old and on fixed incomes or whatever. And people would get their heat turned off in the winter, and that would be obviously very bad.
Didn't you say that didn't happen to people in working class people when you were growing up, and that's more common today?
Well, yeah. Is there another Summer Lights picture? Yeah. You know, that's something I often reflect on, is that, oops, that's going to be an Oscar picture, which is coming up if we get to it. Yeah, I grew up in a working class, part of the world, and working class family. And my dad was a union member and actually an activist in his union. He was also a Republican. My whole family, everybody I knew was Republican. But what that meant, a certain level of like basic security. Like, we owned our house, we could afford a new car every few years. He got vacations that he could rely on. Like, as a union person, you don't just get like a 1 week vacation. You get a 3 week vacation, a 4 week vacation, if once you put in your time. So we would like get in our car, and we had a little trailer, and we would just like drive across the country for 2 or 3 weeks, right? And there was never a sense that, we never grew up with any sense that like the electric could be turned off, or we could lose our house, or those kind of, that economic insecurity was nothing we really experienced. even though my dad only went to 8th grade, and you know, it's.
I wonder if that was going on with people of color back then, you know, or
Probably not in the
African
same way.
communities.
Probably not as much. Probably not as much. And with single parent households who were headed by women, which there were quite a few, and unions were resistant to African Americans for a long time. Although big champions of the civil rights movement, some of the unions, especially like the UAW was one. But I'm just saying that as a working class family, we didn't have a sense of insecurity. Where now, when I think of the people in The Last Truck or American Factory or all these hundreds and hundreds of people we know in this community who are, you know, workers, working class, graduated high school, maybe went to a little bit of college, there's a huge amount of insecurity. I mean, there are people who are a lot living kind of paycheck to paycheck, and I think it's, you know, the pandemic, you really feel it. And I think it's the lack of, you know, the union density, you know, the anti-union forces, you know, all the things we all know have caused the working class to be people who are kind of on the level of just above poverty, a lot of people.
Yeah. I don't know what the statistic is of like union membership then to today. I don't know.
Well, it was around 30%, which is very significant. And now it's around 5%.
Wow.
That's John Baker.
6%. Okay. It also depends if you factor in, John Baker knows his stuff.
Wow.
Let you factor in public sector workers versus non-public sector workers, but it's down around 5-6%. Yeah. Which is not, that's, you know, it's barely hanging on. And that must change. And I think it is changing, but we don't have to. I mean, that's actually one of the goals of 9 to 5 as a film.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To teach younger, I mean, yeah, I hope it's a good film, but just like Seeing Red and Union Maids, it's partly to like teach a younger generation some of the, how do I say it, like the tactics and strategies and ideas and kind of fresh things that were tried by people before.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, there's a whole new activist generation coming up. You really can feel it in the labor movement, especially. And some of the oldsters like us have just got to get out of the way. Have really got to get out of the way, right? John is shaking his head vigorously.
Well, you got to guide them too.
Yeah, you have to. Right.
Although there's the new technologies, you know.
Yeah. So, yeah. So anyway,
An American Factory was very much about that as well. And, you know, you've been sticking to your area. You didn't move to New York. You didn't move to Los Angeles, but you stayed in this area where it's not this, there's not a big film or arts. Well, there's arts, but there's not a big film scene. And
no.
Made this film American Factory about a factory nobody would know about otherwise.
I know. Well, it was actually one of those really big life decisions that you don't realize you're making. Like when we all decided, well, let's move to Dayton. Let's not move to Berkeley or Cambridge or the Lower East Side or whatever. Let's move to Dayton because we need voices from Dayton. And it turns out that was a life choice.
And so you considered moving away.
Right? What's that?
You considered moving away.
Sure. Like most people were. Most people graduating from good schools were moving to like cool areas, you know, which we were moving to a really not cool area. But it was cool because we already knew through the movement, we already knew some of the activists in Dayton, and we just thought it would, and we had WISO, you know, WISO, and so we moved there. But anyway, look, it turned out that's where A Lion in the House comes out. That's where The Last Truck comes out. That's where American Factory comes out, is because the reason we could make those films is because we live here. We couldn't have made any of those films if we didn't live here. It would have totally been different films.
But anywhere you lived, there would have been something to make a film about.
Yeah, but if we lived in where everybody else whose filmmakers are, we would, I mean, they're all like flying to other parts of the world to make their films in general, right? And
Like using filmmaking as an excuse to travel.
Well, yeah, I think it was really good. I look back upon that, and again, it's a lot because of Antioch, because we a bunch of us decided together to move to Dayton and form the media house and do left-wing media coming out of that. And that
that's interesting that you all moved to Dayton right out of Antioch as a group. It wasn't just you and and your partner. It was a whole group of you went to Dayton.
Yeah, it was, and I think all of us we joke. I don't know if anybody else is on the. Andy, Andy's there. Oh yeah, Andy who's one of us. We also felt we could have a bigger impact than we might have had in New York. Well, that's true too. If you're like the only thing going in town, you can have a much bigger impact. Yeah, that's true. That's true too. Yeah. So then, American Factory is kind of like, I always say, all the roads that I've walked down, like making A Lion in the House, making Seeing Red, making Union Maids, and certainly The Last Truck, all made it possible for me to grasp like the complex story of American Factory.
Really?
And know how to negotiate different cultures and how to like not be intimidated by the size of it all, know how to really talk to people and create trust. And, so I it's not the kind of American Factory, and we could talk about the Oscar if people are curious about the whole Oscar thing, which that was quite a trip, but it really took all those experiences for us to be able to manage a huge, difficult film like that.
I just watched A Lion in the House this week. It's a 4-hour documentary about children with cancer.
Children fighting cancer, yeah, right. And their families and their doctors and nurses, yeah.
Yeah, the whole constellation of people negotiating. So what about that film informed American Factory, would you say?
Well, if you think about some people have seen A Lion in the House. It has multiple storylines, like American Factory. It also tries to be fair and listen to people who disagree. Some of the families hate their doctor and they call him bad names, right? Dr. Doom, right? And then we talk to Dr. Doom and we get to know him. And we see the nurse's story. It deals a lot with work. To me, this film, I don't know if you felt that, Lion deals a lot with work. The work of the residents, the work of the doctors, the work of the nurses. Along with, of course, the families. The core of it is the families. But handling multiple storylines, multiple different cultures, and trying to represent everybody fairly, that was a huge learning experience.
So you used to kind of have more of an agenda rather than try to represent everyone fairly before that film?
I would say the only, I know what you mean about having an agenda going in and making films that we might consider an essay films, putting it nicely. I know we called our class Media as Propaganda, which is funny now. But we kind of believed in propaganda back then. I mean, we read Mao Zedong on talks at the Yan'an Forum on literature and art. And, we read a lot of, Marxist thinkers about media making and the power of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tiny bit of propaganda, you could say, in American Factory, like you kind of trying to get people in a way, to see about, unionization could be a good thing.
Yeah.
This is an option.
Well, I would say that with American Factory, it's definitely pro-worker. I mean, if you're going to say it's pro anything, it's pro-worker. Other than that, I think it's really, to me, it's like a real exploration. It's kind of like jumping on a moving train and just seeing what's going to happen.
There's a train outside my window right now, sorry.
But I would say that the film I've made that's really is an essay and is a propaganda film is Growing Up Female.
Sorry?
Is Growing Up Female. I mean, in other words, that's one where we had something we wanted to say and we set out to say it. That's not true of any of the other films.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, we had something to say and we set out to say it. We wanted to show the socialization of women. And of course, the interviews were genuine interviews. And as it turned out, our thesis was correct, right? That women saw themselves as second class. You know, all the things we know about sexism and patriarchy turned out to be true, as we all know. But we set out to, we had a point to make with that film. In general, I don't set out with a point to make. No, I mean, I may have points to make, but it doesn't make for necessarily a good film.
Right.
Or,
so it was worker-centric, and in that worker-centric spirit, workers from American Factory attended the Oscars with you, right?
yes. Yeah, we...
How many of them attended?
I can show you some pictures, actually. That was true with the last truck. We took a bunch of auto workers with us who were all out of work. With American Factory, and we made HBO pay for it all, by the way. We didn't pay for it, that's for sure. All their trips, their hotels, their makeup.
It was the last truck that all the workers went to the Oscars.
No, and then more of them came for American Factory. Actually, let me see if we can figure out how to do this, because it really is pretty cool. Here we go. We made a little booklet. Let's see if we can make it come on screen. You know, the Oscars, to me, it was like, okay, I've been there. That was my 4th time. There's me with Jane Fonda. That's for the 9 to 5 film, of course.
Now, if you could start over, it's only, oh, now that's good. That's good.
Okay. So let's see how this works. So it was my 4th time, and I wasn't anywhere near nervous, really, like I was the first 3 times. We knew we were kind of one of the front runners, but that was also true with Seeing Red, and it was also true with The Last Truck. We were considered the front runner and did not win. So this time, and you know, you never know what's going to happen. So here's Shanae Rosser in the film, and there she is at the Oscars.
She looks really good before the Oscars too. Like, she looks really, really hot in these glasses.
She's a good-looking woman, yeah. Okay, so down like this, okay. And there's Jill LaMantia. She's the one who refuses to carry 3 loads of glass on her forklift because she doesn't think it's safe.
Right.
She actually becomes a union activist. She gets drawn into it. Then she gets fired, of course. There she is at the Oscars. Oops. Okay, hold it. I went the wrong way here. I don't know how to do that. Let's see. Oh yeah, Bobby Allen, who's actually a union. He wasn't really an activist, but he was a supporter. He's a great guy. We're friends with all these people. We see him all the time. Let's see. So now what do I do?
Who pays for all this for them to go there?
And this is the day before the Oscars. They did a public screening of all the, well, you see there, of all the films, and they just took the mics. I'll skip through some of these. There's Rob, who was a supervisor, the Harley Davidson guy, who invites people over to the house and they shoot guns. And he was dear friends with Wong.
Mm-hmm.
And they hadn't seen each other in a long time. There we are getting ready to go. I want to get to something here. Oh yeah, the really cool
that are in the factory and people that were fired all together.
Oh yeah. And here's Shanae talking to Variety. And Bobby was probably talking to some European magazine or whatever. We just felt like, let them talk. You know, they're the ones who have something to say. There's Shanae's husband, Lou, was one of the main characters of The Last Truck, which is one reason we gained her trust really easily, and she was very helpful and wonderful to us. Bobby is briefly in The Last Truck. Here we are after we get the Oscar and having breakfast and everything. Anyway, let me turn that off. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, we made participant media and Netflix we forced them to really split the cost of all those airfares and hotel rooms and all that stuff.
Mm.
And higher ground. Oh yeah, higher ground chipped in too.
So we don't have that much time, but one person asked how, you know, how this film has impacted unionization, if you have any information about that, you know. And then I'm also wondering about, you know, how it works with participant media in audience engagement, some of those activities that, like, are you still touring with the film in sort of communities that might be especially impacted by factory life or lack of unions?
Yeah. We made a point, we had a pretty big impact campaign, which was sponsored by Participant Media, which you've probably seen their logo. They recently did Roma, RBG, Dark Waters. Just Mercy, right? They, we all decided it together. And one of the aspects of it was to do a factory city tour.
Wow.
So we went to 6 or 8 cities. I was unfortunately fighting cancer, so I was not able to go to them all. I went to Louisville, which was the first one, where there's a big turnout of factory workers. There's a big Ford plant there, and there's a big GE plant there, which is now Chinese owned. We went to Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Detroit. Those, I may be forgetting some, I'm not sure. And the point was to bring union people, working class people together with faith activists, and also together with owners and managers, to try to bring people to sit down at the table together and talk.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was the point. It started out to be a little more strictly working people in Louisville. But then we sort of realized that there were owners who were coming who were interested in knowing, like, how can we not be exploitative to our workers? Like, let's look and talk about this. And there's a certain percentage of capitalists who, you've heard of B2 Corps, who, and others, who consider it social capital, and if they're going to invest their money, how do they? But the thing that we had to push a wedge as the filmmakers and say, if you're going to talk about the future of work, if you're going to talk about being fair to workers, like pay a living wage, create a safe environment, and so forth, it's not just about being benign. It has to be about changing the power relationships, right? In other words, how do you do that? Maybe you actually have a number of workers on the board of directors, enough to form a voting bloc to actually make things change. And if you have committees, make sure they have teeth. If you have like a safety committee or environmental committee, they had a safety committee at the Fuyao plant. It had no teeth at all. In fact, people who really spoke up would tend to get fired. It had no teeth because there was no union. Another thing you need to do in terms of shifting power relationships, and we would talk about this at these gatherings and many, many things, you have to be neutral. If a union comes knocking on your door, don't hire these anti-union people, which we saw in our film. Be neutral. I will say that the AFL-CIO, we had a lot of contact with people there, and with UAW also, of course. We captured the Labor Relations Institute, the anti-union consultants, in a way that had not really been captured on film before, like what they do and their impact. And they found this extremely valuable for training other workers, like what to look out for. And I bring it up every time we have a screening of the film, and we've had dozens and dozens, probably hundreds. I always make a point of saying, this is something in American life that most people are completely unaware of. that whenever there's a union fight, these companies are hired. They have a very good playbook. They're very smart. They're highly funded. And when all these union drives go down to defeat, it's not just, oh, the workers didn't really want a union.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were hammered the way you see them hammered in our film to be against the union. And I think that's one of the real valuable things about this film. And we didn't even know about it. We were just like following it.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned out to be a very important part of the film.
Mm.
And so you talk about the impact campaign, that's something we really tried to bring up. And also the point about like, it's not just, it's about shifting power relationships at the workplace. And if you're going to talk about the future of work, which is a real subject these days, if you do it with no workers at the table, it's bullshit. If you do it with no workers' voices at the table, it's bullshit. You can't just have somebody's clapping. You can't just have the companies deciding on the future of work and maybe government deciding on the future of work. You have to have unions there. And I think in the last number of years, not very many, union has become less of a bad word in America. I think a lot of you have noticed this. But going into the impact campaign with a lot of these sort of white, highly intellectual, highly educated people, when we would bring up unions, you could tell in the room, this was not a welcome idea. Mm-hmm. We had to really, my daughter really helped a lot. My daughter, Leela, who's incredibly articulate, also went to Antioch. Oh. And her partner, Bobby Holt, went to Antioch. Oh, and they're both labor lawyers now. They have both been organizers. And they really were very good at being in those rooms and knowing how to talk to our colleagues from things like Higher Ground, Participant Media, the Obama campaign, to be honest, the Obama folks. You bring up union, and honestly, it was a little bit of like a chill in the air. And we had to like take a deep breath and, talk about workers' voices and talk about history. And, we had to really do that over and over and over again. And I actually think it had an impact. And of course, the changes in the world, the fact that now like tech workers and, people who deliver, all kinds of people, Fight for 15 are fighting for unions. It's becoming more on the national agenda. I think our film just kind of was part of that wave. And I think 9 to 5 is going to be very much part of that wave. And I feel really, really good about that. And it's all stuff that I started learning about 50 years ago in classes with like David Schiller and Ludo Abicht and my fellow students, back in the day, right? I thought of class as something to be ashamed of. And I learned it's like a motivating force in history. Hey, we have a place, we have a role to play, which was very important. So other questions? Okay,
Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you for this amazing talk, for talking about labor, and class, and talk about film when we're talking about the issues. And we're going to open it up now to all the questions, which I'm sure you're interested in getting to. And Kevin Magruder is going to take it from here. But
we have quite a few questions, and so I'm going to try to get through as many as I can, drawing from the questions in the chat in the order that they were received.
The great ones.
I'm not going to try to make that judgment. The first one was from Bill Bradbury, and he was asking, what is your preferred recording medium, film or video?
Well, film, of course. But people don't, it's too expensive. Film has always been an elite medium. I mean, back when there was no video, the people who made films, by and large, were trust fund kids. To be honest, they were trust fund kids. Jim and I were very unusual in that we made films. When video came along, I hated the look of video. I hated video. I hated the whole way of editing, that whole tape deck to tape deck, all that stuff. So we kind of skipped over video. But when digital video, those little tapes that were like this big, and they held an hour of footage, and they looked different. They looked pretty good, and you can kind of tweak them to look more like film. A Line in the House is made with those cameras. We had Sony VX1000s. Steve and I eventually each had one, these small cameras that you can carry for, you know, I've shot with 16mm cameras, but you can't shoot straight eight hours a day with those cameras. You could with the VX1000s. And we sometimes did shoot for 8 hours a day. Those were good. And now with the digital, you know, coming more recently of digital cameras, starting with the Canon 5D, which we used we were like the first filmmakers to use that camera, which is, you know, a still camera that actually shoots video, Canon 5D. Beautiful, beautiful cameras. That was like 12 years ago now. We were the first people to actually use a little bit at the end of The Last Truck. If you probably don't remember, but there's just a few shots, portraits of workers that glide by, and that's the Canon 5D. And it's a new look like nobody had ever seen in a documentary. So I have my own little camera. I don't like a heavy camera, you know. So,
great.
And I think 4K is bullshit. I'm one of those. Not worth it. So another question.
Jim Francis and Cindy Mapes.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Cindy.
They asked, Julia, can we join your filming COVID crew and contribute footage from New England?
You know, I've thought about contacting folks like you, to be quite honest, and say, can't we, but you know, can't we all do this? We're super busy and we barely have time to do this. We do it out of community service, but you could do it in your own, Jimmy, are you out and about shooting? So yeah, a little bit, yeah. I wouldn't be out and about shooting. I mean, it kills me that I'm not, but you know, there are ways you can do it. What can I say?
Okay.
But yeah.
The next question from Carol Pearson.
Nice.
How can we see, you talked about this a little bit, the premiere for 9 to 5.
Oh yeah.
You're saying that'll be an independent lens on PBS in early 2021.
It will be, and it may be at a film festival near you. Oh, I want to just, I brought this out because some people have seen this. If anybody wants a copy, this is my 50 years, and it's a really nice book, and some of your pictures might even be in there. I don't know. I have lots of copies. It's very good. It has 2 essays, one by Barbara Ehrenreich and one by a younger filmmaker, Fariha Zaman, and a lot of pictures. Anyway, I bet April would take addresses, right? Would you? Yeah, just and
send an email to alumni@antiochcollege.edu.
Carol Reichert's, oh my God, Carol Reichert's was part of A Line in the House, right? Yes. Are you the one I dragged out of the shower to go shooting? Was that you? No, that was a different Carl. Never mind. It was one day we needed somebody. Carl Reichert's. Oh, Steve is here too. So another question.
And Roger Huff wants to know, what is the URL for your website where upcoming shows will be listed?
We don't have a website. It's terrible, right? I'm sorry, we don't have a website. We do have a Facebook page for that. That's a good point, which is called 9 to 5, The Story of a Movement, which is the name of the film. 925, 9TO5, The Story of a Movement. And there is a Facebook page and there's an Instagram, and I don't do it. I have a younger person who does that for us here in Dayton. She's great.
And then there was a question about the class that you taught at Antioch. Could you say more about that?
Media as propaganda, right. Jim and I taught it, and we basically taught people how to use a camera, how to interview. Was it? Yeah, how to use a camera, how to interview, how to edit. The basic skills, you know. And we probably, I'm sure, read like Marxist writing about some of that, you know, about media for the people and how to, gosh, it's been a long time, you know.
The next question is, what was the senior project that is in the Library of Congress?
Growing Up Female. Growing Up Female, and it's a very good film, black and white, 2-to-1 ratio. You can get it through New Day Films, Newday, and oh, actually, let me show you this. Let's see. I'm kind of proud of this. This is a very Antioch thing too. This is the poster for Growing Up Female that we made. Jim and I learned how to operate a printing press in order to make this. And there's the back, which gives you quotes and tells you how to order the film and all that. And we distributed the film ourselves, and that's a very much Antioch thing. You know, there was not a good distribution out there that would allow the filmmaker to decide on the pricing of the film, the advertising of the film, the who it gets to, in other words, the use it has. So we decided to learn how to do it ourselves. We did learn how to do it ourselves, and then we ended up, because we learned, we taught it to other people, and we said, we're not just going to keep this knowledge to ourselves. So we formed New Day Films, which grew and grew and grew, and it's a democratic worker-owned cooperative of filmmakers, and there's like 150 people in it, probably some people on this call. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. It's another part of my legacy, I guess you would say, but it's a part of Antioch's legacy. New Day Films is, and me, and many of us are part of the Antioch legacy in the world.
And then Tom Manley asks, could you speak to why Hawks films were not available broadly from the late 1950s and how that is a danger now?
No, I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't know that. They're great films, so sorry. I'm not a film scholar.
There's a few on the Criterion channel, which I subscribe to.
Yeah.
Somebody said they're on Prime.
Yeah.
They could be. Our film, American Factory, is going to be on the Criterion channel, Criterion collection, and we're working right now on like the making of and deleted scenes and a commentary track and all that stuff.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we're working on, and A Lion in the House is going on Netflix.
Great.
Whoa.
We're very proud of that. That was part of our deal in a way. Part of our informal deal with Netflix, along with the Obamas, was we told them we really wanted Lion in the House to be on Netflix. Mm-hmm. So we're working on the Criterion channel, the Netflix deal, and getting 9 to 5 out into the world, along with the COVID crew of the young ones. That's one reason we're so damn busy.
And then Tess Koenig Martinez asks,
hey.
She says she's interested to know what getting out of the way encompassed when you were saying that earlier about getting out of the way.
The old union leaders need to get out of the way. They need to retire. They need to get out of the way. I mean, yes, they should pass on their knowledge and stuff, but they need to just retire. They can't be clinging onto their jobs at 70 years old. They ought to retire at like 64, 65, you know, and also they ought to like really boost up workers of color, women workers to become union leaders. Union money should be put into training, I think, and supporting like next generations of workers.
Okay. Then Jessie Joanne Moore-Hare asks, what happened to those in the group in Dayton?
Oh, well, you know, most of them went into film. Seriously, like Andy Garrison, I mean, I could go on about all of them, but Andy Garrison now lives in Austin, Texas, and has made several really great films. One of the best ones is called Trash Dance. You should look it up. It's excellent, excellent film, Trash Dance. He's a teacher at the University of Texas in Austin, along with a filmmaker, kind of like me. Tony Hariza went on to make a number of films. One of them is about reconciliation of people in prison who committed crimes with the people they committed crimes against, which I'm going to forget. That's Concrete, Steel, and Paint. I don't know if Tony's on this. If you are, tell me the exact. I'm pretty sure it's Concrete, Steel, and Paint. And he worked for American Friends Service Committee for many years, making media. We all remain great friends. Barbara Tuss went on to work in Hollywood as a script supervisor, and then threw it all over and became a person who works to help very small children who have developmental delays, physical ones especially, to to do better. Barbara, who else? Sherry Novick, who was in the group, went on to work with Tom, Jane Fonda's husband, Tom Hayden, out in California, and has worked in a lot of progressive causes, especially feminist causes out in Northern California. So we all went on to do really, I think, pretty cool stuff. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out.
And then Janet Kahn.
Janet was one of us. Hi, Janet. Where are you? I don't know, but I'm glad.
Her question was, remember the little film we did called Where Do Correct Ideas Come From?
Where do correct ideas come from? Do they drop out of the sky? Yeah, I don't remember it, but I'd love to see it. Yeah, I remember the title now that you say it. Yeah.
She says that you used it to introduce Friday evening films.
Yeah. Where do Okay, that's very nostalgia there. That's cool. Hi, Janet. Janet, I miss you, I have to say. Carl Reichert's here.
And then Avi Lank has a comment about follow-up to American Factory. He says that the National Labor Relations Board reopened the case about the unionization there after the film came out.
Yeah. Well, that lost. Which I'm shocked. It recently came out that their bid to prove that they were that anti-union practices and perhaps even get a new election, I guess, failed. It failed, which is very sad. I don't know if it was because the statute of limitations had passed. I'm not sure. I haven't actually had time to look into it.
Okay, and then Sean?
Oh, Carol Greenwald. Right, I did leave out Carol Greenwald. There were a lot of us. Carol Greenwald, you know the TV show called Arthur?
Oh, yeah.
She started that. And she had a show in WISO called Snails Something and Puppy Dog Tales. She had a children's show on WISO because that was something she really wanted to do. And she went on at WGBH to become a vice president of WGBH. And found the show called Arthur. Ellen Schneider, Kim Aubrey all went on to do amazing stuff in sound and film. And I mean, really, so many of us. It was so inspiring. And it was a real springboard for us to go on and do cool things in the world.
And then Sharon Elkerly asked, did your battle with cancer inform your choice to make the film about kids and cancer?
No, I hadn't had a battle with cancer yet, but my daughter did. And yes, absolutely, 100%. My daughter at 16 got cancer. She's fine. She has 2 kids, grandkids, spent the afternoon with them. We would have never, I hope you guys see this film someday because I think it's our best film. And it will be on Netflix, A Lion in the House. We would have never made that film if we hadn't had that experience. Like when I walked into those rooms with moms and kids fighting cancer, those hospital rooms, it's like I was part of their community. I wasn't like a news person coming in and say, tell me what it's like to be a mom with a kid fighting cancer. I was one of those moms. So it totally inspired me. I also knew that cancer changes your life and changes your whole family's life. And I knew it was going to be, whatever was going to happen with those kids, we followed, and we didn't know what was going to happen. It was going to be life-changing. And it was. So it was the hardest film we ever made, and took like 8 years, 6-8 years. And I think it's our best film. So.
Roger Huff asks, what other questions are raised at American Factory screenings? Everybody
asks, how did you get access? that's always the first question. And then some people ask, you know, is the factory still open? People ask about the chairman. People ask, you know, we always bring up about the union stuff, as I said. You know, we maintain good relations with the factory. Actually, we maintain good relations with the chairman. He was going to come to the Oscars, but you know, COVID was just starting in China, and he actually couldn't leave the country. So we sent a Chinese representative to take the seat that we had gotten for him. I don't know, he sent us this vast bouquet of flowers when we got the nomination, you know. So, you know, those are some of the questions people ask, yeah.
And then Christian Paco Perez asks, what advice would you give to Dayton-based filmmakers?
Man, I talk to Dayton-based filmmakers all the time. What do I tell them? Keep shooting. I tell them get good sound. You know, I try to teach people about how to make their shots look really good, and so does Steve, of course. We both do. Ask the impolite questions. You know, I tell everybody, you know, like there's stories all around you. There's important stories all around you. You have to dig for them, and you have to commit time. I think one of the most important elements of films that I've made with Steve especially is just our commitment of time and to the people and to building those relationships and to showing that we're not giving up on them. You know, we're going to be there. And we're actually really interested. So that's advice I would give. The NLRB is no friend to workers. Yeah. It's one of the best friends they have, but you know what I mean? Like there's not many friends to workers. Okay. Lions, lions, and porcupines. That's what it was called, right? Okay.
Susan Barkan asks, is the COVID crew addressing worker safety related to exposure and testing?
I'm sorry, are they related? Are they?
Is the crew that's filming around COVID, are they also addressing with the things they're capturing worker safety related to exposure to COVID in the workplace, and then availability of testing?
Testing for sure. Testing for sure. Yeah. We filmed testing, talked about the lack of testing. In workplaces, not really, because for one thing, everything's shut down. And for another thing, many people, even on our team, they might live with an older relative or they might have children or whatever. So people do take risks making these films, making these shorts. But no, they're not. I'm trying to think, are any of them dealing with worker safety? Not directly, no.
Okay.
If we got to go in the Fuyao plant, we would certainly be dealing with that, but I'm not sure we're going to actually pursue that one.
Okay.
You can only do so much.
Right.
This is all like community service. Like no one's getting paid anything to do this. They're just doing it like we always start our films. Like we have a camera, we have sound equipment, we have a car, we can go out and cover stuff.
And we have just a couple more minutes left, but Alan Brewer says that he's one of the founders of an annual unique film conference in Nashville. And he asked, what's the best way to contact you to see about inviting you as a guest speaker at their conference? Oh,
great. I would love to do that. I love Nashville. It's only a drive away. April can put you in touch, or Catalina with me.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I'm just right here in Yellow Springs.
Okay. And then
I don't know if everybody feels as I do that the college experience at Antioch was just incredibly formative, and I'm so glad I ended up there. However it happened, I paid my own way, it's like I came as a Republican. You know, it was just incredibly important. It's great to see everybody's faces. I know so many of us have gone on to be like important people in our communities and important in whether it's our work community or our home community. And we should really be proud of that. And Antioch should be proud of that. I don't know what's going to happen with the future of our school. I know it's extremely rough for all small colleges, but certainly Antioch. But
well, we are
names.
coming to the close of our time, and I really want to thank you, Julia, for really being available to answer questions, conversation, and it's been recorded, so it will be available
Okay.
in about a week then. And this is the first of monthly programs, Spotlight on Excellence. And we'll be doing a program in June, and so you'll be getting information about that. April, do you have any final words that you want to share with folks? And
I just want to say thank you to Julia and Catalina and you, Kevin, too, for making this a real bright spot in this COVID-19 dark time. And all the work that you do, including this event here. So thank you very much for that. And thanks everybody for joining us. I think we had up to like 125 people at one point in the meeting. So it was a really great crowd.
Great. Oh, it's fun to do. I was nervous, but I guess it came out okay. And thank you, Catalina. It was fun to talk with you. And I look forward, I'm going to be doing your class in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Julia's joining my class, presenting on documentary filmmaking along with Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Next Friday. So excited.
Me and Steve, we're gonna put them through their paces for sure. Yeah.
That won't be recorded. It's exclusive. You've got to be an Antioch student. So sorry.
Yeah. But if you're teachers, we do this workshop. It's excellent, 2 hours long.
You
All
can
about
ask Julia to do the
documentaries.
workshop in your hometown via Zoom if you pay up.
Okay, everybody. It's great to see you. It's Dan, I mean, so many of you. John, Dan, folks in Boston, all you guys. Carl Reverts, man, I remember your son. Yeah, right. John, it's great to see you. I hope to see you. Monica, man, we missed each other. Roger, Phoenix, look at all you guys. Nancy and Mark, are you there? Wow. Okay. Well, see y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
And look for the recording.
You,
We'll be
Julia.
posting about it.
And
Okay.
thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Have a good night, everybody.